Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. I'm here as always, my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, bro?
I'm not good, mate. I'm not. You're killing me. You're killing me. I didn't want to be talking about this, man. I'm like international, but I'm the last remaining man on earth that likes the international break. Yeah. They're usually happy times for me, but this one is not. This is not a happy topic of conversation, but one that I don't think either of us want to talk about ideally, but it feels very necessary. And yeah, I suppose we're obliged to talk about it, but we really wish it wasn't the case.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And the beautiful thing, mate, about the international break, I don't know about you, is there is so much football, and whether it's England, whether it's Brazil, Argentina, watching Emi Martinez play, because he seems like he's the only one that's gone away. The most important thing about the international break is that you guys stay informed. Thanks to the wonderful people over at One Football for sponsoring this video. They are able to keep you informed. Dan, I know we spoke about this app to death now, but it is genuinely so brilliant. You've got everything from previews, reviews, live feeds, and as well, they've got the Italian Serie A domestic coverage for the United Kingdom. They're able to show that, so you can watch that in app, and that's just been brilliant, mate, being able to have so much football that you don't have to go through a dodgy stream for, right at your fingertips, mate. I know for what you do and for what I do, mate, it's so important to our day-to-day life. It's for our jobs. And I can't speak highly enough about OneFootball.
Yeah, mate, it's the best. You're the best. It's simple as for any football fan. It's the go-to place for your news, your scores, your stats, and more. Everything is right there. And as you say, mate, you've got the ability to watch live football in the app now. And they're doing a giveaway at the moment. Actually, you can get 2 general admission tickets to a Serie A match of your choice for match day 8. They're doing a giveaway. You can find the link on their Twitter, I believe. It's open until the 26th of September. So if you're watching the video before then, go sure to check that out as well. Make sure you download the app. You can access the giveaway through there as well. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff going on there. So yeah, mate, if we can pass one bit of positivity on in this podcast, is that OneFootball is a great app, and you guys should definitely have downloaded it by now.
Absolutely. And the beauty of OneFootball, especially them live updates, mate. When Jacob Ramsey scored the other day, there was obviously the kind of is he not offside? Got that notification straight away, mate. I knew I was the only one
before VAR.
You guys had OneFootball. Exactly. We knew before VAR that my guy Jacob was onside. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you check out OneFootball using the top link in the description. You won't be disappointed. And when we say that we use this app every day, we do.
We mean
genuinely. It's incredibly useful, and I definitely spend longer than I should on the app. But that is a story for another day. Dan, this is a podcast that we didn't want to have to record. It's a difficult one, isn't it, mate? The international breaks, because I always find, and I guess we have the Queen to thank for like the momentum of the channel going one way, cancelling around the fixtures. Just when you think things are going well, Queen lets us to go and pop her clogs. And now we're in a bit of a rut in terms of views on the channel, because we've gone a week where we've missed 2 posts when you consider a preview and a match report and any of the content that may come. And it's the same again, mate. 2 weeks, no football. And we thought there's a few things to talk about, to be fair. There is a few things to talk about. We've not got too many players away, and the players who would be away, mate, are injured. And that's what we've come to talk about today, right? Injury list is mounting up now. By no means is it a list as big as the French national teams. My God, that list is massive. But it does actually include 2 Villa players, that list. Of course, we've got Boubacar Kamara, who's got a knee injury. Again, we don't really know what the deal is, and we don't know if he actually needs to have surgery or not. But judging by what Stevie said, the club is very concerned about this, mate. Matty Cash, again, he's been out with a thigh come hamstring strain. He should be good to go after the international break, is the kind of noise I think we're hearing on that one. So that is hopefully all good. Obviously, Diego, don't really need to explain that one. But it came out this morning, mate. Luca Dean has pulled out of the French squad with an injured right ankle, I believe. Is that correct? Now, the first thing that came to my mind was, well, he's left-footed, so he only needs a left ankle, right? In this kind of play. This is incredibly concerning, mate, because 3/4 of our fucking defence has been wiped out.
Oh my God, mate. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. Luca Dean was obviously called up to the French squad due to that massive injury list that you mentioned, mate. And he's then dropped out himself, obviously. He's been replaced by Adrien Truffert. He replaced Theo Hernandez in the first place. So, like, that's three. You've sort of seen the tier list, I suppose. There's one thing it's been useful for is it sort of showed up the pecking order within the French setup. So, yeah, we don't really know too much about that one, to be honest with you. It remains to be seen. I mean, ankle injuries and stuff like that tends to be, I don't think that's too long, to be honest with you. That there's normally around the knees and stuff, which we'll get onto where you have more problem. So yeah, hopefully it's not too long without Luca Dean. That's for our case and for the French, but and for him, I hope that he's fit, because wouldn't we love to see him go away to that World Cup in November, 2 months away, and that's probably the overarching concern for most of the, well, I'd say actually all of these guys really, who are either on the fringes or well into their national setups and everything like that. And there's a real doubt around quite a lot of high profile players, actually, not just in the Villa, but around the world, actually, that are going to be missing them or potentially missing the tournament. So yeah, it's one that I think Luca will be okay. Hopefully it's more of a precautional thing where he doesn't want to aggravate it too much in a couple of weeks out, and hopefully he'll be raring to go when we get going against Leeds. But worst case, we haven't seen Ludwig Augustinsson yet. No. And if there's one good thing to come out of it, maybe he can be that, but I suppose that remains to be seen.
Isn't that just painful to say? No disrespect at all to Ludwig. And people have been putting a lot of disrespect on this man's name. We've not seen him kick a ball, so we absolutely shouldn't cast judgment. But I could just tell the pain in your voice then, mate, when you were convincing yourself that there is some good news to take from this injury dilemma that we find ourselves in. It's not ideal. Especially Luca Dean, I believe, is one of two only ever present players in Villa's starting 11 this season. Played every minute, I believe. Sorry to interrupt you, mate, but just on the look, do you not think the club have sort of contributed to the way that we look at him? Because there's been absolutely zero involvement for him so far. Especially
against Bolton? Yeah, and you have games like that where you sort of feel that you get a start, and because he's nowhere to be seen, and I believe there were some externals, I can't remember what they were, but there was reasons for him not being involved, which came to after the game. Yeah. But his complete lack of involvement and the fact he's signed and just become a complete ghost figure around the matchday squad, I think that sort of contributed to it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a weird one, isn't it? It's we've said so many times, mate, you don't buy backups, you buy better than what you have. But it's a bit of a difficult one, really, because when you've gone and spent the best part of 25 million on Luca Dean in the January, 6 months later, you're not going to then spend 25 million pounds or above, or to go in and get a player that is better than Luca. And I think he is one that I don't think has fully convinced some fans yet, which I think is fair, especially when we've seen that video do the rounds of United in the Cup last year. And if you kind of see the positional sense, the positions that Matt Targett was adopting in that game, it's night and day, right? Luca's over here. He's way over there. Whereas Matt Targett was far more concerned. And I'm not saying that Matt Targett's a better player than Luca Dean, because I genuinely do not believe that. But players' systems, some suit them better than others. So yeah, I do think Ludwig has been put in an incredibly awkward position straight away coming in, and I think Gerrard even said himself, didn't he? He was like, well, he's going to. Of course, he's not going to say that he's not going to bring competition and all this kind of stuff. But I think if you go and get a Sergio Gomez, who, of course, was someone who he was linked with, and then somebody who found his way to Manchester City, somebody who's younger, who is, and I'm not going to question the hunger of Ludwig, because I think that would be a very unfair judgment of his character. But somebody who's coming to the country who has a point to prove, because Ludwig is a seasoned international and he's played in European football in the form of the Europa League with Sevilla. I think then there is legitimate competition, and yeah, there still would be a pecking order. Luca Dean, sometimes a French international. I think it's probably the best way to phrase it. Is and would be above a Gomez immediately, right? But then a couple games, you get a run of a few games, the shirt's yours for the taking. So, and maybe this scenario does present itself that Ludwig gets that opportunity to have a few games. We don't know, but I think there probably is something in what you were saying, mate. In that he was almost set up to fail. It's like God, what was his name? Spanish guy. Who did we sign? I forgot his name now.
Jose Angel Crespo.
Yeah, like what? Oh wait, no, not him. No, the striker. Who's the striker?
Borja Baston.
Borja Baston, yeah. It's like,
mate, there's a future episode. How many Spanish flops can we name that have come to Villa?
All of them.
Yes, yeah, basically.
But I guess the same goes for Crespo, though, doesn't it? Was never going to be ahead of. It's like the club that there's some questionable pieces of business that we've done over the years, mate.
Well, the thing is that Augustinsson was a very different profile to what we were expecting. And that's why I'm really interested to see him play. And I think we've seen in the performance that Young put in against Manchester City that there is something to be said for experience and nous, especially in a young team. So I am excited to see Ludwig play. And I think he probably, without him knowing, has got a bit of a point to prove. But he'll know the realities of the situation that he's in that he's on a loan. They'll have an option to make that permanent at the end of the season. He was very much out of favour in his last season at Sevilla. So it's a fresh start for him. He wants to get that going as well. And so, obviously, even for him on a personal level, like he wants to go to this World Cup. He'll want to go with Sweden. And whilst he is a very established Swedish international, as you mentioned, mate, 46 caps for his country, they're not going to just go and pick somebody that hasn't played in 6 months just because he's got 46. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to pick players that are playing ahead of a World Cup. And so that's why I thought, I think Buba has slightly suffered as well. And maybe that's a nice segue onto him in that I think his move to Villa from Marseille has probably taken him out of the spotlight just a little bit in the eyes of Didier Deschamps. And he faced more of a battle to get into that World Cup squad than he perhaps would have done had he still been playing in France, still been playing on the European stage and everything like that. And this is nothing to do with his performances, but, it's only natural that this guy, if you're looking at it from a French perspective, has gone off your radar a little bit. And you're not going to be as up to date with how he's performing and everything like that. And I think he wasn't in the original French squad. He too was called up, similar situation to Luca Dean. He too was called up to replace an injured Adrien Rabiot, who's sort of been in Juve or another club with a bit of an injury crisis. And so he's been involved in that. And you know what's pretty funny? Do you know who has been called up to replace Buba?
Jordan Veretout.
It's Jordan Veretout, Jordan Veretout, who, funnily enough, has come in at Marseille to fill the that midfield void that Buba left. It's funny how these things work, isn't it? So Jordan Veretout has been called up to replace Buba. I saw on Twitter, I want to give the guy credit because it's been doing the rounds today. Ben Dinnery said I'd love to know how you get into this position. He is an injury analyst for the Athletic. Wow. That's quite niche, isn't it? And so I believe he does a few bits with a bunch of stuff that's like Talk Sport, Sky Sport, the Athletic, NBC. Seems quite reputable. I'll admit I've not come across him before, but he said it seems to be a medial cruciate ligament problem, which can or cannot require surgery. It's not as serious as someone like Carlos, but it's still borderline as to whether you need to operate or not. And I'm guessing because we haven't heard anything in the days since, bar that really cryptic tweet from the club, which wound me right up. You can't be saying what was the wording? It was like, get well soon, Buba.
Stay strong or something like,
how are we supposed to deal with this information? And to be fair, again, I want to credit these people who are doing the God's work on Twitter. Someone showed a tweet that the club put out when Luca Dean got injured back in January. Do you remember it was like, it looked quite serious at first and he was back in the team like 11 days later.
Oh yeah, with like a broken shoulder or whatever, collarbone.
Yes, that one. And it was like, the tweet at the time was like, get well soon, back stronger, and all this sort of stuff. And it's like he was back then 10 days later. So maybe this is just a club thing. But doesn't it feel for like the longest time we've always been really cryptic on injuries? I remember with Barkley's one, that was the same as well. I don't know why that
so much.
We're always like this. Why? Why?
Mate, I don't know. I wish I could answer that. It's I mean, like, I can understand. The thing is, right, there is, like, I think what people don't necessarily understand, mate, and I know we can, like, speak, like, directly on this situation, mate, being people who work in social. Like, the club tweeting that, the admin, whoever it is, whoever tweeted that, I can 100% guarantee does not know the severity of the injury, because nobody does, right? And people who are like you've pointed out, the guy who showed the similar, that's completely meaningless. It is, because, when you tweet for a living, you have to tweet about something, and you're going to wish your best player that he gets well soon. Like, there is nothing in that. And like, stuff like that bothers me. And people are going to say that I'm like being like facetious or whatever, but like go outside. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got better things to be doing. I don't mean that in a muggy way, but like, genuinely, we should not be sitting here analysing the club's tweets during the international break. Fuck my life. We should not be doing that. I don't know, and I get, like, if anyone's done that, like, no offense, guys, but for me, and the thing is as well, they may well know, the admin may well know, right? But the top and bottom of that message is a player is injured and we're wishing them well. If there's one thing that Villa fans are, is they're fucking overthinkers on everything. And I'm guilty of that as well, right? We love to deep and analyse everything. And I've only noticed this, right, since I don't really tweet about Villa that much anymore, to be honest, because I don't really have the time. And because I tweet all the time, like, it's my job. I don't like to tweet too much about Villa. Don't shit where you eat and that kind of thing. So, like, kind of removing myself from that a little bit has made me realise how much time I've wasted. We were doing equations with Tony Shearer and emojis.
Oh, man.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do get what you mean, mate. I do. And I think
I appreciate people want to know what's happening, right? And
yeah,
it's incredibly frustrating. Yeah, it's like, we're eating.
It's a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah, like, because if we were doing if we were posting teasers about Ross Barkley, I swear to God, mate, my fist would be through this bloody monitor. We were doing that every week. Stay strong, Ross Barkley. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's nonsense. But obviously, the club aren't helping that situation by being transparent, which is something that I completely understand. It's my rant for the podcast.
Good effort, mate. Good effort. Well, so I think the reason why this is such a problem, right, is because of the defence. And so we've lost our left-sided fullback and now our right-sided fullback in Matty Cash, who was injured a little while back, got way ahead of it, and like he tweeted out in Polish that he wouldn't be going away with Poland for the international break. Thankfully, those sort of muscular injuries should heal up pretty soon. And hopefully I'm sort of hoping he's a similar situation to Luca, whereby we see him the other side of the international break. Not too much to be said on this one from Matty, because it does feel like maybe his return is more imminent, or certainly more imminent than Diego Carlos, who we'll come on to next. But yeah, it's just now we look at this defence, which is most likely going to be Ashley Young, Tyrone Mings, Ezri Konsa, and Ludwig Augustinsson. Which doesn't exactly tickle the pickle, shall we say. It doesn't get the juices flowing, doesn't it? It's not the most exciting back line in the world. And so, yes, I think it's good that we're going into the run of fixtures that we do against sides that, perhaps don't have the most menacing attacks in the Premier League. But even still, it does feel a little bit, and I think we can sort of talk about Carlos at this point as well, mate. It feels like we're back to square one again. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're playing with last season's squad. all over again, basically.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and that's what, like, you know, obviously there was the video that Diego Carlos put on his Instagram story today of him hitting the gym, doing the leg extensions with the boot on. Good to see that he's still in the gym, because I think with these type of injuries, a lot of, I mean, obviously I've never injured my knee or whatever, but, you know, from what I understand, it's fairly common that, you know, if you don't continue working out, Diego's going to have one huge leg, which is his fit leg, and then his leg that he's injured is going to be significantly smaller. So we're keeping that out.
Wesley.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like we're keeping like reverse engineering a Wesley situation, which is obviously not ideal. This Brazilian transfer will work out, Dan. It will. It's got to, because Wesley didn't, and he made us look very stupid on this podcast, mate. Or did we do that to ourselves? Maybe we did. But it's going to be a long time this guy is out for, and he may not even come back the same player. That's something that is quite frustrating, because, and this has kind of been a point of conversation on Twitter, mate, for the past couple of days or so. Our two big signings have got injured. Now, you can say, you know, you can't foresee that, right? You cannot ever think when you're signing these players, oh, God, you know, I'm fairly sure Buba had a fairly clean injury record. And the same with Carlos as well, somebody who, again, didn't really start playing a lot of regular football until the age of about 25. A relatively clean bill of health when you look back at that. So you can't really account for these anomalies. But of course, hindsight is 2020, mate. But I think it kind of comes back to the conversation that we were having, and I think we had with Aaron, mate, as well. The recruitment wasn't brilliant, really. In terms of quality, I would say it was, but in terms of volume, now, of course, it's easy to say that now, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. The good thing is if we're going to put the classic Villa positive spin on these things, we have to get through, like, what is it going to be, like 10 games, if that, to the World Cup? How many games is it? Seriously.
Yeah.
So we'll come back in October and the World Cup's in November. So we have got. It's not even going to be 10 games, is it? It's going to be like 5 or 6.
The final game is Brighton. Okay. Obviously, the Leicester game's postponed. We don't know when that's happening. We've got 9 or 10 games, depending on when that Leicester game's played.
Okay. So all you have to do, right, is get through that. Hopefully we'll get Dean back. Hopefully we get Cash back. And if we go in without Buba and Diego, which for all intents and purposes we're going to be, all you got to do is get through those games. And then before you know it, you're back. It's Boxing Day. And then the January window's around. And then you can act. Dindonka, we can't forget him. Bednarek, like these guys are like, this is probably the situation where you're talking about depth and everything like that. This is where those guys step in. We've got cup games and stuff in between. I believe we've got that back-to-back with Man United, in which the first one is the league and the second one is the cup, I believe. And so we're going to need these guys. But all you got to do is stick with it. I think a lot of these teams are short on depth in the league. Like, you look at Arsenal. I always think this is Arsenal. Is that Arsenal are brilliant at the moment, but like, what happens when Gabby Jesus picks up a knock? Like, there's a few instances like this where I think that, like, what happens at the back, like left back, full back. Like, they were playing Granit Xhaka at left back last season, and I know they've recruited in these areas, but like, there are a few clubs like that in the Premier League where I think they're just trying to get through this first games. More fixtures have been postponed, obviously, with last weekend. It's just like, all you got to do is just get through this run of games as best as you can. Douglas Luiz is going to have to do his bit in that defensive spot, and I think he's a better player than he ever has been at Villa, which is a shame because we're not going to see it get much better, unfortunately. But like, it's all just get through until January, and then hopefully we've been relatively active in January in the last couple of seasons, and you imagine that will continue. And obviously we had the World Cup, loads of time to prepare for that and everything like that. So that's about as well as I can spin that.
It's going to be interesting as well, right? Because it's always been a thing. There's been so many players over the years that have gotten a move off the back of the World Cup. Just off the top of my head, James Rodriguez, Guillermo Ochoa, Yerry Mina. They're all South American for some reason. I'm listening, but you know what I mean. It's a shop window opportunity. We've never had this instance where it's a winter transfer window, right? Where clubs are usually knee jerking. I think there's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a time where you wheel and deal. But I think a solid World Cup, especially when you're looking at some of these maybe lesser known quantities that, again, maybe a James or like an Ochoa that are going to emerge and have the tournament of their life and going to be the player that we talk about for the next 40 years when we refer to this World Cup, mate. The selling clubs are going to be put in a very, very strong position whereby, because they can essentially demand whatever. But as well, to kind of look on the other side of that is they've only got a 29-day period in January or whatever it is to sell while their stock is still sky high. So it's going to be interesting to see how deals are going to be done in this January, mate, following the World Cup.
Yeah, for sure, mate. For sure. I think it's a point to mention that a lot of clubs are still struggling off the back of COVID. And that's across Europe. That's still a lingering. I mean, you only have to look at Leicester. They can't even afford to set their own manager and stuff like that. So there's cases all across Europe where clubs are still struggling. And so you're in a really weird position where there still are going to be bargains out there. And I think Luca Dean was probably one. But I saw on Twitter the other day, actually, that the last player we flipped for a profit was Christian Benteke. That's the last time we signed a player and sold him for a profit. And I read that and went, nah. And then I was like, oh my God, yeah. There's no one. And you think Douglas Luiz, but okay, he's probably unless we sell him in January, probably going to go on a free. And so, what you were talking about at the top of the podcast, mate, about recruitment in that, maybe it is left a little wanting, but that's probably a conversation for another time.
I think so, mate. I think so. And I'm sure we will touch on that very soon. Very soon. But guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit a like, comment your thoughts below and subscribe for more content. Channel's growing really nicely. I know there's been a bit of a lull in views. We passed 4,600 subscribers. Amazing. If we can hit 5K by the end of the year, that would be amazing. It'd be nice just to, the subscribers don't mean anything. It's the people that, tune in every week and listen on Spotify and who view these that matter. But the subs are more of a vanity thing for Dan and I. But it'd be nice if we could get that out because you guys are watching. So if you're watching, you may as well subscribe, right? If you haven't already, hit a like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe for more, download One Football, and up the Villa.